long before Greece imagined its gods on Mount Olympus, before Rome built its empire, and thousands of years before the Bible was written, human beings were already asking a question that has never stopped haunting civilization. Why do we die? The oldest written answer to that question comes from a land that no longer exists on modern maps, but whose ideas shaped the entire human story. This land was Sumer, located in ancient Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now Iraq. Around 2100 BCE, Sumer was home to the world's first cities, the first writing system, and the first recorded myths. Among these myths, one story stood above all others. It was not a story of gods alone. It was not a creation myth. It was a story about a man, his strength, his arrogance, his friendship, and ultimately his fear of death. That story is known today as the Epic of Gilgamesh. What makes this epic extraordinary is not just its age. It is nearly 4,000 years old, making it the oldest surviving epic narrative in human history. What makes it truly powerful is how modern it feels. It speaks about tyranny, loneliness, friendship, grief, and the desperate human desire to escape death. Gilgamesh was believed to be a real historical king, ruling the city of Uruk, one of the greatest urban centers of the ancient world. Archaeological records list him as a ruler who lived around 2700 BCE, but the Gilgamesh of the epic is not just a king, he is 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, a being caught between godhood and mortality. This balance is crucial. Gilgamesh is powerful enough to challenge monsters and gods, yet human enough to fear death. That tension drives the entire epic. For centuries, this story was lost to time. The Epic of Gilgamesh was not rediscovered until the 19th century, when archaeologists excavating the ruins of Nineveh uncovered the library of the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal. Inside were thousands of clay tablets written in cuneiform, one of the earliest writing systems ever developed. Among those tablets were fragments of a forgotten epic. When scholars finally translated them, they realized something shocking. This ancient story contained themes and events that appeared again thousands of years later in other religious traditions. Most famously, a great flood story that closely resembled the biblical tale of Noah. But Gilgamesh is not a religious text. It is not a book of laws or commandments. It is a mirror held up to humanity at the very beginning of civilization. At its core, the epic asks, what does it mean to live well, knowing that death is unavoidable? To understand why this question mattered so deeply, we must understand the world of ancient Sumer. Life in Mesopotamia was fragile. Floods could destroy crops overnight. Droughts could starve entire cities. Disease spread quickly. There was no guarantee of safety, no promise of an afterlife filled with reward. The Sumerian afterlife was bleak, a shadowy existence where all souls, good or evil, met the same fate. In this world, immortality was not spiritual. It was physical. To be remembered was to survive. This is why kings built cities, walls, and monuments. This is why stories were carved into clay. Memory was the only form of eternal life. Gilgamesh, more than anyone else, understood this, yet he rejected it. At the beginning of the epic, Gilgamesh is not a hero. He is a tyrant. He abuses his power, exhausts his people, and treats Uruk as his personal playground. His strength is unmatched, but his wisdom is undeveloped. He believes himself above consequence. The people of Uruk cry out to the gods for relief, and the gods listen. What follows is not a punishment, but a balance. The gods create a being equal to Gilgamesh in strength, but opposite in nature. This being will change Gilgamesh forever. His name is Enkidu. But before Enkidu enters the story, the epic establishes its true theme. Power without understanding leads to emptiness. Gilgamesh has everything: strength, status, divine blood, but he lacks purpose. His journey is not about becoming stronger. It is about becoming human. This is why the Epic of Gilgamesh has survived for millennia, not because of its battles or monsters, but because it captures the moment humanity first realized that strength alone cannot defeat death, and that realization is only just beginning. In the next part, we will see how the gods attempt to control Gilgamesh's power by creating Enkidu, and how a meeting between two equals will give birth to the oldest friendship ever recorded in human history. To stop Gilgamesh, the gods do not strike him down. They do something far more intelligent. They decide to balance him. The goddess Aruru, the divine creator of humanity, is commanded to shape a being equal to Gilgamesh in strength, but different in spirit. From clay mixed with divine essence, she forms Enkidu, a wild man of the Pei, untouched by civilization, living among animals, drinking from rivers, and knowing nothing of cities, kings, or laws. Enkidu represents something Gilgamesh has lost: pure nature. While Gilgamesh rules behind walls and thrones, Enkidu runs free beneath open skies. He is powerful, fearless, and innocent, yet incomplete. At first, Enkidu is not human in the way society defines humanity. He has no language, no clothing, no understanding of culture or morality. He disrupts hunters' traps and protects animals, acting as a force of chaos against human expansion. The people of Uruk hear of this wild man and fear him. They send a temple priestess, Shamhat, to civilize him not through violence, but through intimacy. This moment is one of the most misunderstood parts of the epic. Shamhat does not corrupt Enkidu. She awakens him. Through human connection, Enkidu gains awareness. After spending time with her, the animals reject him. He is no longer one of them. He has crossed an irreversible line. This is the epic's first great transformation. To become human is to lose innocence. Shamhat teaches Enkidu to eat bread, drink beer, wear clothes, and speak. These acts symbolize civilization itself. In Sumerian culture, bread and beer were not just food. They were markers of human society. Now human, Enkidu hears of Gilgamesh's cruelty. Filled with righteous anger, Enkidu travels to Uruk to challenge the king. When Gilgamesh attempts to exercise his authority, Enkidu blocks him. The two clash in a brutal confrontation that shakes the city. Their battle is legendary. Walls tremble. The earth cracks beneath their feet. Neither can overpower the other. And then something unexpected happens. They stop fighting. For the first time in his life, Gilgamesh meets an equal. And instead of hatred, he feels respect. Enkidu, in turn, sees not a tyrant, but a lonely man burdened by divine expectations. From this moment, rivalry transforms into friendship. This friendship is revolutionary in ancient literature. It is not political. It is not strategic. It is emotional. Gilgamesh and Enkidu become brothers by choice, not blood. Through Enkidu, Gilgamesh learns empathy. Through Gilgamesh, Enkidu learns ambition. Together they decide to make their names eternal, not through oppression, but through heroic deeds. Their first target is Humbaba, the monstrous guardian of the cedar forest. Appointed by the god Enlil, the forest is sacred, dangerous, and forbidden. To enter it is to challenge divine authority itself. This decision marks a turning point. Gilgamesh is no longer acting alone. He is acting with someone to lose, and that makes all the difference. In the next part, their quest for glory will lead to triumph, but also to consequences that neither of them can escape. With Enkidu at his side, Gilgamesh is no longer driven only by ego. He is driven by a dangerous new idea that heroic deeds can defeat mortality. If their names are remembered forever, then in some way they will never truly die. This belief leads them to the cedar forest, a place both sacred and forbidden. In ancient Mesopotamian belief, cedar trees were symbols of divine power and permanence. To cut them down was not just environmental destruction. It was a challenge to the gods themselves. Guarding this forest is Humbaba, a monstrous being appointed by the god Enlil. Humbaba is not merely a monster. He is a divine enforcer, a living boundary between humans and the realm of the gods. As Gilgamesh and Enkidu approach, fear begins to creep in. For the first time, Gilgamesh doubts himself. He has never faced a creature so closely tied to divine authority. It is Enkidu, once a creature of nature, who now encourages him forward. The roles have reversed. Civilization hesitates. Humanity pushes on. When Humbaba confronts them, the epic describes his presence as overwhelming. His voice is thunder. His breath is fire. The earth itself reacts to his rage. This is not a clean, heroic battle. It is chaotic, terrifying, and uncertain. With help from the sun god Shamash, who sends powerful winds to restrain Humbaba, the two heroes gain the advantage. Humbaba begs for mercy. He offers submission. He promises loyalty. Here the epic presents a crucial moral crossroads. Enkidu urges Gilgamesh to kill Humbaba immediately. He fears divine retaliation if they hesitate. Gilgamesh, conflicted, ultimately agrees. They kill Humbaba. At first it seems like victory. They cut down the sacred cedars. They return to Uruk as legends. Their names echo across the city. But the gods are watching. Soon after, the goddess Ishtar becomes infatuated with Gilgamesh and proposes marriage. Gilgamesh rejects her brutally, listing the fates of her past lovers' men turned into animals, broken, destroyed. This public humiliation enrages Ishtar. She sends the Bull of Heaven to punish Uruk. Once again, Gilgamesh and Enkidu fight together, and once again they win. But this victory seals their fate. The gods meet in council. One of the two heroes must die as punishment for killing Humbaba and defying divine order. Gilgamesh, being part divine, is spared. Enkidu is chosen. Enkidu's death is slow, cruel, and deeply human. He curses Shamhat, the woman who brought him into civilization, blaming her for his suffering. Then, as death approaches, he recants. He realizes that without becoming human, he would never have known friendship, purpose, or love. His deathbed visions of the afterlife are horrifying. He sees a realm of dust, darkness, and silence where kings and servants are equal, and no one escapes decay. When Enkidu dies, the epic changes forever. Gilgamesh does not react like a hero. He does not seek revenge. He breaks. This is the first time in recorded literature that we see a man confront existential grief. Gilgamesh touches Enkidu's body again and again, refusing to believe he is gone. He watches as decay sets in, and suddenly Gilgamesh understands something terrifying. If Enkidu can die, so can he. This realization destroys his old worldview. Strength failed. Glory failed. Friendship did not save Enkidu. For the first time, death is no longer an abstract idea. It is personal, and Gilgamesh runs. He abandons his city, his throne, his identity as king. He puts on animal skins and wanders into the wilderness, obsessed with a single goal: to escape death itself. In the next part, Gilgamesh will attempt what no human before him has ever achieved: a direct confrontation with immortality. Enkidu's death leaves Gilgamesh psychologically shattered. The king who once ruled Uruk with absolute confidence is now haunted by a single, relentless fear. Everywhere he looks, he sees the same truth repeating itself: all living things die. For Gilgamesh, this is unbearable. He begins to ask a question no king before him dared to ask openly. Not how to rule better, not how to win more glory, but how to escape death itself. And in ancient Mesopotamian belief, there is only one being who holds the answer. His name is Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim is not a god. He is a human who achieved what no other human ever has: immortality. According to legend, the gods granted him eternal life after he survived a catastrophic flood sent to wipe out humanity. Gilgamesh believes that if anyone can teach him how to defeat death, it must be this man. But reaching Utnapishtim is not easy. He lives beyond the edges of the known world, in a realm associated with divine boundaries and cosmic danger. To reach him, Gilgamesh must travel farther than any mortal king before him physically, mentally, and symbolically. His journey begins through the wilderness, where he wanders alone, wearing animal skins, no longer distinguishable from the beasts he once dominated. This visual transformation is deliberate. Gilgamesh is shedding civilization itself, stripping away his identity as king, because kingship has failed to protect him from death. Eventually, Gilgamesh reaches Mount Mashu, a mythical mountain that marks the gateway between the world of the living and the realm of the gods. The entrance is guarded by terrifying scorpion men, creatures so powerful that even the gods fear their gaze. When they see Gilgamesh approaching, they are stunned not because of his strength, but because they recognize his terror. Gilgamesh openly admits his fear of death. He does not boast. He does not threaten. He begs. Moved by his honesty, the scorpion men allow him to pass. Beyond the gate lies a tunnel of complete darkness, stretching for 12 leagues. There is no light, no guidance, no sense of time. Gilgamesh walks blindly, step after step, confronting the unknown in its purest form. This passage is not just a physical tunnel. It represents the psychological descent into mortality. Gilgamesh is walking through the darkness that all humans must face alone. When he finally emerges, he reaches a surreal landscape filled with jewel-like trees and unnatural beauty. From there he meets Siduri, a divine alewife who lives at the edge of the world. Siduri immediately recognizes Gilgamesh's obsession, and she tries to stop him. She delivers one of the most important philosophical messages in the entire epic. Siduri tells Gilgamesh that immortality is not meant for humans. She urges him to abandon his quest and instead find meaning in ordinary human joys, eating, drinking, loving, and living fully in the moment. In other words, she tells him to accept death. Gilgamesh refuses. His fear is too strong, his grief too raw. He believes that accepting death is surrender, and he is not ready to surrender. Siduri eventually directs him to Urshanabi, the ferryman who can take him across the waters of death, a cosmic sea that no mortal is allowed to touch. This final crossing is the most dangerous part of the journey. One wrong move means instant death. Gilgamesh must rely entirely on guidance, patience, and restraint, qualities he never needed as a tyrant king. When Gilgamesh finally reaches Utnapishtim, exhausted and broken, he expects wisdom. What he receives instead is a question that cuts deeper than any blade. Why do you seek what humans can never have? In the next and final part, Gilgamesh will confront the truth about immortality and discover why even those who escape death cannot escape its meaning. When Gilgamesh finally stands before Utnapishtim, he expects revelation, some hidden ritual, secret knowledge, or divine shortcut that can save him from death. Instead, he is met with a calm, almost indifferent figure who has already walked the path. Gilgamesh is desperate to follow. Utnapishtim listens as Gilgamesh pours out his grief, his fear, and his terror of becoming dust like Enkidu. Then, instead of giving instructions, Utnapishtim tells a story. He speaks of a time when the gods decided humanity had become too noisy, too chaotic, and too numerous. Their solution was not correction, but annihilation. They unleashed a great flood meant to erase all human life, warned in secret by the god Ea. Utnapishtim built a massive boat and saved his family, craftsmen, and animals. When the flood ended, he released birds to find land, first a dove, then a swallow, and finally a raven. This flood narrative is strikingly familiar because it predates the biblical account of Noah by more than 1,000 years. Yet in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the message is darker. The gods are not moral judges. They are unpredictable, emotional, and divided among themselves. Impressed that a human survived divine destruction, the gods grant Utnapishtim and his wife immortality, but with a condition. They must live forever separated from humanity, isolated at the edge of the world. Utnapishtim then challenges Gilgamesh directly. If you cannot conquer sleep, he says, how can you conquer death? Gilgamesh accepts the test and fails almost instantly. Sleep overtakes him for 6 days and 7 nights. Each day, A loaf of bread is placed beside him to mark the passage of time. When he awakens, the decayed loaves prove how completely time controls him. This moment is devastating. Sleep, the most natural and unavoidable human state, defeats him. Death is simply sleep without waking. Still, Utnapishtim offers Gilgamesh one final chance. Not immortality, but delay. He tells him of a plant at the bottom of the sea that can restore youth. Gilgamesh retrieves it. Hope returns. But on his journey home, as he stops to bathe, a snake steals the plant and slithers away, shedding its skin as it disappears. The symbolism is unmistakable. Renewal belongs to nature, not humans. Gilgamesh does not scream. He does not rage. He understands. When he returns to Uruk, he no longer seeks to escape death. Instead, he looks at the city walls strong, enduring, built by human hands, and realizes something profound. Mortality cannot be defeated, but meaning can be built. The Epic of Gilgamesh ends not with immortality, but with acceptance. Gilgamesh becomes a wise king, aware of his limits, and at peace with the truth that to be human is to die, but also to live, to love, and to leave something behind. That is why, after 4,000 years, this story still speaks to us. It is not a myth about gods. It is a story about us.